We typically talk Nebraska football every Tuesday night with Greg Peterson from Husker Online. We've moved it to Thursday. You can blame me, but it's going to pay off for you as you can kick back for the next hour as we talk Nebraska football here. Greg, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Feels good to be a fully vaccinated adult, and looks like we're going to be back to normal college football coming up this season. So, yeah, all's good.
Yes, all signs have been positive recently, both for everyday life and for life at the stadium, no doubt. Good stuff, good stuff. We had mentioned before we started to record, and I will let everybody know in the live chat to certainly leave your comments and your questions there for Greg and myself. Greg's going to do the heavy lifting, but I'll chime in if I've got anything to say. Demarion Houston, Jamie Nance, a couple of players that didn't see the field much have decided to hit the transfer portal. But in looking up their recruiting rankings, there was at a time that they were expected to be possible contributors.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they're actually two talented guys. Feel kind of bad. Jamie Nance, they can just mark down another one of those guys that I went and visited when he was in high school and watched him play in person, and another one of those guys that's no longer on the team. So that kind of bums me out a little bit. But that's kind of what's going on right now. It's not just Nebraska; it's everybody this time of year after spring ball wraps up, and the coaches sit down and have their evaluations and they have their meetings with the players and. It's two guys that, truthfully weren't going to get very much playing time. You've seen the movement now, what Scott Frost and his staff's been doing with, a lot of bigger bodied guys now. And, those two guys just kind of find themselves now buried, 6th or 7th on the depth chart. So, you can't blame guys for, looking to go somewhere else and, find some playing time. And, I think the problem is, too, that you see, like we mentioned, it's not just Nebraska, but, there's more guys in the transfer portal than there are spots available for them. So it's kind of crazy, but, it's all about playing time. And, you don't get any better if you sit on the bench. So, and the strange thing about it is with these two guys leaving, there is not a single wide receiver left from the 2017, 2018, and 2019 recruiting classes for Scott Frost. So, and all of those guys left the program one way or the other, except Mike Williams graduated. So he would be the only one out of a whole bunch of them. So, you've seen this complete shift in the type of receivers that they were recruiting when they first got here, heavily from the state of Florida and, a lot of the speed type, normal, I don't want to say normal size, but, the smaller, speedier guys. Like a guy like Wandale Robinson and stuff like that. But nowadays, you've seen that big effort there by the Cornhuskers to, get big and be able to compete. I think that's a shift that, it kind of took. I don't think it took them a while, but to realize when they came in, the famous statement that Scott Frost had made is he's going to make the Big Ten adjust to Nebraska, but. I think they realized right away that it's the vice versa, that, Nebraska's got to adjust to the Big Ten, and this is just one of the ways that they've had to do that. So, we wish all the best to both Jamie and Demarion, and hope they land somewhere and have a successful college career.
Okay, Greg Peterson on the line from Husker on the Line on Rivals. So check out his work and everybody over there on Rivals, Husker Online, and Greg's YouTube channel that we'll let him outline here in just a minute right here on YouTube, because it's a tremendous source of video and highlights and news sources. So we'll let Greg talk about that in just a second. I appreciate everybody who's online. I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names in the live chat. So thanks for following us over here from the main channel. There is reason for this. I'm cleaning up the clutter. I will explain in the next couple of days on the main channel some strategy that's going to make it an easier and better experience for all of you to find the teams that you want. And we'll outline that soon. So we got David, we got Scott, Cheryl, great to see you as always. You know that. Matthew as well here in the live chat. And Matthew's got a question coming up. Let's see what Matthew's got. Did Scott Frost feel pressure to get Wan'Dale Robinson the ball? And if so, do you think it will open up Frost's offense to other avenues?
Absolutely, on both counts right there. Excuse me. Yeah, because that's why Wan'Dale Robinson left, because he was getting force-fed the ball, having to tote the rock way more than he ever wanted to. And but that was the kind of guy that he was, that, he was going to do anything for the team and anything that coaches are going to ask of him. But he was just getting too beat up. And what you saw there was a lack of a running game, lack of a consistent running attack. That you had guys banged up, or you had guys that weren't available, and Wan'Dale was one of those guys that was available, and he was the best bet that they had for a playmaker. But now, yeah, absolutely. I expect, like I said, the key is that running game. And if Nebraska can start having a consistent running attack, something that you can depend on, that's going to open things up for everybody else. And we've already talked about here this spring about just how many weapons that they really have now. And it's going to be tough, very tough for defenses to cover all these weapons as long as you can stay on the field. If Omar Manning is available, this is a scary bunch of receivers. You throw in, Samori Toure, the transfer from Montana, and Oliver Miller. These are guys that, we've mentioned that these three guys are going to be the top three guys, catching balls. And that's going to open things up for Adrian Martinez as well. And I think, everybody wants to see that old Adrian Martinez that when he was a true freshman, that people forget that, he put himself in the Heisman Trophy conversation at a point when he had Stanley Morgan Jr. and J.D. Spielman to throw to. So you kind of saw how electric Adrian was when he had weapons like that at his disposal, and kind of made him play a little bit more like, I don't want to say like a chip on his shoulder, but he was young, and if he made a mistake when he had those kind of weapons, that he just shook it off. As an 18-year-old kid, he just shook it off and looked like it didn't even faze him. And I think later on here in his career, that those mistakes that he makes, it's been a lot harder for him to adjust and to come back and shake it off right away. But Matthew hit that right on the head. Absolutely.
Greg, I probably shouldn't assume that you've been able to kick back and take a breath over the last couple of weeks ever since the spring game. But if anything, with the way the recruiting season is played out and failed to play out because of the dead period, and as we've discussed over the last couple of weeks, it's really going to kick into gear once players are able to officially visit campus again on June 1st. So kind of set the stage for us in regards to what that's going to look like in Lincoln, in regards to targets, in regards to recruiting visits, and what has been announced.
Well, yeah, it's ramping up big time already. And it's kind of funny, because of the timing of it, we would be talking about a lot of these other events that we're attending and all that going on right now. But so we've got kind of a late vacation here for the rest of May. But June 1st, as soon as that dead period gets lifted, I know that our Husker Online recruiting team has confirmed already 11 official visitors coming in the month of June. And Nebraska's already announced their two big Friday Night Lights camps that they will hold in June. And that's the big time right there. Actually, the second one is always the big targeted one for for all the out-of-state guys to come to. The first one's usually more of local guys and regional guys, but some of the top guys will go to 2 of them, and then they culminate those 2 big camps, and then they will be holding a Big Red barbecue on a Friday night that, we'll have a ton of visitors come for that. And then the following Saturday is the Adidas pipeline camp here that they just started doing last year, or 2 years ago. It was the first one ever that is for offensive and defensive linemen that come in from all across the country, and it's all put on by Adidas. And it's a great event, and something that they want to keep doing here, and that's why they nicknamed it the Pipeline Camp, after the pipeline nickname of the Nebraska offensive line tradition. So tons and tons going on. I think right now that for the biggest concern before things open up here in June is they really want to lock up their 2022 quarterback, and they're also looking at their 2023 quarterback as well. And that's kind of the way, if you've watched quarterbacks coach Mario Verduzco operate, he goes out there every year and he picks out some guys that he could believe in and take to the next level. And, he targets, one of those guys and they lock them up. They lock them up early, and then they can concentrate on the rest of that class. I think that right now that's what they're concerned about. We were expecting quarterback out of the Atlanta area. His name's MJ Morris. He's a 4-star dual threat quarterback that came to the Nebraska spring game and had a great time. And he was actually going to make a decision the 12th yesterday. But he's going to take a couple of more weeks because he's really tight as well with Georgia Tech. They're super tight with one of the coaches there at Georgia Tech. I can't recall his name. He played in the NFL, but anyway. So it's between Nebraska and Georgia Tech for Morris, and right now a lot of the people think that Nebraska is in the driver's seat for that because he's just blown away by his visit, and he said he loved it here. So I mean, that's up in the air, and if that doesn't seem to work out, there's a couple of more targets they have that have already set up visits. The next guy probably on that wish list would be Richard Torres. He's a Texas kid. He's out of San Antonio. He's a 3-star pro-style quarterback. He's coming in for a visit, I think the first weekend there on June 4th. So he's not wasting any time. And then, next on their list would probably be Connor Harrell. He's a dual threat quarterback, a 3-star, and he's from Alabaster, Alabama. So he's a kid that wants to come here and see what Lincoln's all about as well. And then, for a 4th guy in there on their wish list would be AJ Bianco out of St. Louis High School there in Honolulu, a teammate. He's got a teammate coming in here this summer. So, in Wyndham Huli, and so he's going to come. I think Wyndham's talked him into coming and checking out Lincoln too. So I mean, like I said, it's heavy on wrapping up that 2022 quarterback right now for the Husker coaching staff. And once they do that, like I said, it opens up in June, and then they start working on the rest of their needs.
I see Rivals has Torres with a 5.5 rating. He doesn't have a national ranking or a ranking at his position or anything like that. So explain to us how that cycles through in regards to the recruiting service and how Rivals approaches that, and if that's going to get updated at some point here. Yeah,
and when you see somebody like that's already has interest in Power 5, Power 5 interest in him and stuff like that, and he doesn't have a Rivals rating is because nobody has seen him yet in person. And And that's a problem that we're working through right now since COVID kind of shut everything down. That a lot of our analysts haven't had a chance to get out and see guys like they used to, and our Rivals Camp series was shortened up to only 6 camps this year, and so that eliminates another 10 opportunities to see kids around the country in person. So once he gets eyeballs on him, then he actually goes through and starts to get rated on a national scale. But that's not anything to worry about with a kid of his caliber at this point. You can almost say he's automatically a 3-star. He just hasn't been cycled through yet. So yeah, I would give him a starting point as a 3-star right now.
Folks, if you're upset that you had to wait 2 extra days to hear Greg's analysis, you can blame me. I got stuck in the Dallas airport for 32 hours on Monday into Tuesday. So blame me for that. But keep in mind that we're typically here Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central. And I would ask all of you if you know Nebraska football fans, and we are always welcome to and represented in the live chat with college fan bases from all over the country. So we've got a different feel here at the Voice of College Football because we've got fan bases all over the country. So really let college football fans know that we're here every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central to talk Nebraska football. And let's expand this and bring in a big crowd each and every week as we head toward August camp. All right, Greg, we've got Scott's on the line asking about the offense and how different it's going to look, especially at wide receiver and running back.
Yeah, this is something that we've talked a lot about already. This spring. That just the size is gonna blow people away if you haven't, especially if you haven't seen these guys in person. That's the amazing looking thing, is that you got a bunch of NFL looking bodies now, and I'm not just talking about a couple of wide receivers, but there's a couple of tight ends that you throw in there, and a pretty darn good walk-on running back that looks like he's already got an NFL body on him. So the emphasis I think is going to be beef, because you got an offensive line that's full of monsters now, and it's probably going to be the best looking offensive line that we've seen under Scott Frost, which is going to help out a lot. And we keep mentioning weapons galore. That's the key, and just big body weapons that you forget about, like an Austin Allen, who's a returning senior tight end that's got NFL potential. He's a 6'9" kid that I remember seeing in Aurora, Nebraska, when he was a junior in high school when I first met him, and he was 6'8" then. So that's the key. It's a lot bigger team, and it's got athletes in positions where they're needed, and I think you're going to see a heck of a lot more of a balanced type of an offense where teams now are going to have to pay attention to the backfield and what's coming out of there. And it's like we talked about a little bit earlier, it's going to open things up for those big-bodied wideouts and for Adrian Martinez, because he's got plenty of checkdowns now that, if his first option's not available, I guarantee you there's going to be 2 or 3 that are. So yeah, I think it's going to look a lot different, and that's what we're going to need to see. Hoping that they can knock the rust off and figure things out in those first 3 games, and hopefully head to Norman 3-0, and taking on maybe the favorite for the national championship this year, and probably the best quarterback in the game. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see if Nebraska and Oklahoma can go in there both undefeated in the 4th week of the season, and you never know.
Thomas Fedoni, unfortunately, won't be able to join that group of skill position players if you group the tight ends in with the backs and the wide receivers. Do we know, is this pretty much looking like a standard knee injury ACL where it's probably going to take 9 or 10 months, something in that range, so there's no way that he's going to be able to come back?
No, it's a lot better news than that. That it's not that severe, and they're actually hoping to get him back at some point during the season. So yeah, that's very encouraging, and it's not like it's the end of the world for him because he is a true freshman, and I don't think he was going to be a huge part of things this year, but I think he was a guy that they were going to have certain packages for that would come in and try to make a difference at different points in the game. So it's a setback, but it gives him a chance to get bigger and stronger, and keep learning. And he's already he was so highly ranked for a reason because he's a very, very skilled football player, and probably this injury just means that he plays in Nebraska for another year before heading off to the NFL early.
Got Greg Peterson on the line from Husker Online. The Rivals brand on the Nebraska side. It's Husker Online, so check out his work and the rest of the crew there on Husker Online. And I got to say, as I've mentioned a few times in previous weeks, I was blown away when I checked out Greg's YouTube work here. So check that out, and I'll let Greg outline it. But in regards to looking at practice footage, player interviews, news conference clips with players and coaches, and Scott Frost himself, it's just a wealth of information there. So let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, on YouTube, it's Husker Online Video. Pretty easy to find. I think all you got to really do is type in Husker, and it'll pop up there pretty quick. We're part of the Rivals family, HuskerOnline.com, and we're the biggest website out there that covers Nebraska football. And our guys got a lot of years in this business and are regarded as some of the best in the business. So, video-wise, we probably do more than anybody else that even covers Nebraska football. As far as anything Nebraska football, and a lot of basketball and baseball coverage as well. And obviously recruiting is what we hang our hats on around here. And all season long, we provide you with plenty of high school coverage here as well, from anywhere from local teams to anywhere that we decide to travel across the country following around Husker commits. So we do it all. We do it all around here, and looking forward to June, like we've been saying here, so we can start getting some new fresh camp video rocking out there on the channel.
Absolutely. Matthew's back at it, attacking the offense. Do you think Scott Frost would want Adrian Martinez back for his extra COVID year if things stay the same, or will he want him just to move on?
That's a hard question because Adrian, like I think I mentioned last week, that he's graduating here in about 10 days or so. And, he's got 2 years of eligibility left. And you never know how the season goes for him. If he puts his name in there that, has a good season and starts getting his name mentioned in there with some of those other quarterbacks that are coming out after this season, then who knows? I mean, one thing I could say for sure is that Coach Frost would want what Adrian wants, whatever's best for Adrian. Now, if that was for him to decide to come back, I think that they would welcome him back with open arms. Absolutely. But the problem with that also is that you kind of stunt your growth for that room, that with the guys that are coming up behind him. I think that you get yourself in that cycle that somebody's going to transfer every year because you think that you have a cycle going here where you're going to get your turn here eventually, and that's Logan Smothers is that guy right now that was kind of expecting this would have been his year to take over. So, it would have been Luke McCaffrey and then Logan Smothers, but yeah, I mean, so it would be a difficult decision, but I think like I said, I think Coach Frost would want whatever Adrian wants because they're pretty tight. They're pretty tight, and Coach Verduzco as well. So yeah, I mean, I think Coach Verduzco thinks of Adrian as his own son. So yeah.
Ripped at Glee must be an old guy like us because he's seen Miami, Nebraska play meaningful football games at the Orange Bowl in particular. So he wants to see him play again. I get that.
We tried there. We played a couple times here, not in the too distant future.
Good games?
Yeah, yep. Games, very good games.
One went to overtime.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the more memorable. I can't even talk now. One of the more memorable games that home games that I've seen, in recent memory. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Craig, we had the conversation a couple of weeks ago about Nebraska having this tradition, this brand of tough physical football, just being a bully in a good way. Obviously, you got to be careful with that term these days, but we know what we mean on the football field, pounding people. But at the same time, football's played a lot differently in 2021 than it was in 1981. And you're not going to win big time games and big time conferences playing like that from a schematic standpoint. So how do you take that identity that a die-in-the-wool college football coach like a Scott Frost wants to take to make his team mentally and physically tough, but at the same time, you got to spread people out, create matchups, use the speed and that sort of thing. And so kind of playing into this, you got Dan, who's got a question about Frost says that he's moving toward a power running physical style. Do you anticipate Nebraska running the ball more? 3rd and 4. That's become, you watch these games. If it's more than 3rd and 1.5 and these teams are spreading it out and just give up on the run. And I'm like, is this where if we come with football, 3rd and 4, is that a pass down or a run down?
Well, we know around here back in the 90s and earlier, that was always a rundown. And I think, we've mentioned here already tonight about what I'm thinking that this running attack's going to be like. And, and they have to because just the way that they have struggled since they've joined the Big Ten, that you haven't seen, that power running game just kind of disappeared. And I think it kind of started. I'm not going to blame anything on Bo Pelini there, but kind of after Bo Pelini's tenure, things just kind of, the running game just disappeared completely. Now, Coach Frost's first year here, in year 1, he had Divino Zigbo, which was pretty much an unknown until his senior year there, and you saw him put up a pretty darn good season, and that team was fairly successful. They did fall short of a bowl game, but still, that power running there that Ozigbo provided made a big difference, and we haven't seen that since then. But now I think that you've got the backs that can do that. Coach Held, I know I've mentioned before about how happy he is with the stable of running backs that he's got now, and that you've got some of these fast, shifty guys, and then you throw in a Jaquez Yant with a big bruising body that just wants to run over guys, and it's going to look a lot different. And like we just mentioned a little bit earlier, it's those big bodies across the board. I mean, if Nebraska's traveling to your school to play a game, make sure you get out there and watch them get off the bus. It'll be amazing how many big dudes are on this team now. And I think they're finally starting to get it together to where they're going to be able to compete, with a Wisconsin, physically like that, with an Iowa, and, be able to start winning consistent games. Because around here, we got so spoiled that, Bo Pelini was winning 9 games a year. He never won less than 9 games a year. And, you were kind of just thinking, well, it's hard. Bo just can't win the big game because, you'd get blown out by Wisconsin by like 30. But you still had 9 wins to hang your hat on and go to a bowl game. And then that wasn't good enough. And, it just really hasn't been good enough since Tom on. I mean, Coach Solich won 9 games a year as well and played for a national championship. And that wasn't good enough either. So, yeah, we've gotten spoiled around here. And I think that, Coach Frost is a smart enough guy. And, he's regarded as a pretty, one of those offensive gurus that, you can go back to some of his early stuff at Oregon. I think you're going to see more of something like that with a little bit more of a mixture of the run game like that. And, it just takes time to adjust to a certain style that, Power 5, every Power 5 conference is a little bit different. Everybody's got their own kind of style, and you've got to be able to put together that winning combination. And that being said, we've talked so much about the offense that the one thing that is not a question mark going into the year is the Nebraska defense. They've got a potential to be one of the better units that's been here in a long, long time. And, Nebraska used to be pretty darn good defensive school for many, many years. So, everything's very, very optimistic right now that offense can be a game-changing part of this team and put them on the right track right now. And you got to take baby steps as well. It's not like, your goals right now are to win 6 games and make it to a bowl game and then build on that. If you ask the players, they're going to tell you they want to win the whole thing. But, that's their mentality is always going to be that. But, I think they're on the right track and they're putting the puzzle together, and it's just taking a little bit longer than they imagined it would when they got here. So,
and the players should think that they should have the mindset that every time they take the field, meaning in week 3 or week 4, whatever it is against Oklahoma, that they're no better than we are. We both put our shoulder pads on and we're ready to go. And we've got 11 on the field just like they do. And then we're all flesh and blood. Let's go beat them. They're just guys just like us. And that's how they should approach it. In building the program, of course, the coaching staff and the head coach in particular has something else in the back of his mind, knowing talent evaluation and thinking, okay, this is where we are. And there's no reason not to believe, there is not a juggernaut heavyweight elite Alabama, Ohio State in that division, that even though I agree with you, 6 wins and a bowl against this schedule, especially 6 wins and a bowl appearance would be a solid improvement. No question about it. But in the next couple of years, the way this program's recruited top 25 talent, that Iowa, Wisconsin should be in sight.
Absolutely. And Nebraska's always kind of held that edge on any of those neighbors that we have here. Nebraska still remains, no matter, despite their record and their coach, they usually do have a top 25 recruiting class. And, the thing is that a lot of it hasn't weeded out they've had to weed out a lot of the guys that didn't fit in. And you see a lot of that, recruiting the state of Florida. When they first got here, that was heavy what they did. And unfortunately, none of those guys have really panned out. And I think it's something like some crazy, like 90% or 85% of the recruits from the state of Florida are not with the program anymore. But then you turn that around and you look at some of the states like Georgia and Texas and California, and most of those guys are still on the team. So it's kind of a weird little correlation there. But, and I think Nebraska has really started to find a diamond in the rough out of the state of Georgia. So, I think right now, like we're saying, if they can get 6 wins and make a bowl game, get those extra practices, now you're moving forward. And it's kind of funny that we haven't had to answer that Coach Frost on the hot seat question yet. And, we're about 45 minutes into it here. And
that's a record.
Yeah. And so, you see that progress. And then I think a lot of those questions start going away and people start seeing light at the end of the tunnel to get things back to respectability, because you've got a fan base that is probably the most passionate fan base out there. I don't want to take anything away from any other fan bases, but it's a proud and a passionate fan base that is used to being right up there at the top of the heap year in and year out. That it's been 20 years since that's happened, and they're hungry. They're hungry around here.
Just a couple quick notes before we hit our next question here. A few minutes ago, when you mentioned the transition from the Big 12 to the Big 10, Bo Pelini, that period of time, again, I was just astonished at the time to see this Nebraska team that had played in 2 consecutive Big 12 championships, played a Texas team that went and played in the BCS championship game against Alabama at the Rose Bowl and take them down to the final second of the game, hold that scoring offense that was crazy good with Colt McCoy down to basically 10 points before they kicked a field goal with 1 second or maybe negative 1 second left on the clock. That good of a defense. And of course, Ndamukong Suh was the headliner. And then the one that played Oklahoma within a field goal in the Big 12 championship, that there was this Nebraska roster that could barely squeeze any offense out of a rock. It was like that difficult, that painful sometimes, but just had this stellar, stifling defense that was one of the best in the country. Then it was like a different roster showed up in Big Ten play. It was like they flipped a switch and suddenly they're ringing up 400, 500 yards of total offense and all sorts of points, but they couldn't stop anybody. It was just strange.
Yeah, well, because Nebraska was always known for defense and running the ball. And when you join the Big Ten, I don't understand why those 2 things went away. It's mind-boggling. Because you still, like we just mentioned, you still recruit at a high level, even though you switched conferences. Then you're looking at recruiting a different type of player, but you're still recruiting at a high level. You get defense. You get a guy like Ndamukong Suh, my God, was damn near won the Heisman Trophy as a defensive tackle. Probably should have won the Heisman Trophy. And then, guys like Levante David, he's one of the best in the business, making a living there in Tampa Bay. And then you even bring in like a Randy Gregory who comes right in and makes a big-time difference as a pass rusher. And, it's just bizarre that I'm not sure if it was coaching. It's hard to say, pinpoint why the sudden change, and to think that what you've been doing for years isn't going to work, and especially because you're going to more of a physical conference, that you're going from somewhere where you dominated running the ball. That it really makes no sense when it seems like that same formula should be working in the Big Ten. And it's hard to even put a nail on the head on that one. I don't know.
Then the other thing I had to look up when you were talking about dominant running backs and when was the last time Nebraska had that kind of guy, Amir Abdullah was the first guy that came to mind for me. And I just looked up his 2014 season. Good Lord. I knew it was going to be eye-popping. I'd forgotten 1,600 yards, 22 catches, 22 touchdowns. Oh, man, he was good.
Well, yeah, and he had to wait his turn. He was behind Rex Burkhead, who's won a Super Bowl ring there in New England. That recruiting class actually was funny. Amir's recruiting class, that was the first year that I moved back to Lincoln. So I was still in Nashville when I interviewed him at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. that he was participating in because he was an Alabama kid. And he didn't even have a Nebraska offer at the time when I interviewed him. And then a couple weeks after that game, he got a Nebraska offer. And most people wanted him to play corner. And he wanted to play running back. And Bo Pelini said, hell yeah, you come here and play running back. And he was like the third running back in that class because he was behind Braylon Hurd and Aaron Green. Both moved on because Amir Abdullah made them both look silly. Aaron Green ended up at TCU, I think, and Braylon Hurd ended up at Kentucky. And both played, a lot of meaningful football for those two schools. So, yeah, Amir just kind of came in, and I don't know if it was just something that they had saw in him. Because he was like, when I saw him play in that high school all-star game, he was playing running back, but he was also doing a lot of like Wan'Dale Robinson type things as well. But yeah, he took Lincoln by storm and really put together a great career and, has been in the NFL to this day. So, yeah.
3 huge seasons, especially the final 2, were just ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. It was so funny, too, when the first practice of his freshman year, I say, hey, Amir, how you doing? He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm following you around, man. So it was pretty funny.
He said you live down in Alabama somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Menin's on the line. I just don't know what to think about the ceiling of this particular team. Every spring, we are told that this is the year.
Yeah, that's what we hear every year. And I think we just covered pretty much what we think the ceiling of this team is. Winning 6 games, that's got to be your goal right now, is winning 6 games. I would be more worried about the floor question than the ceiling. If you wind up with only 4 wins, that's not good. That's not showing any kind of improvement. And but you never know if what happens if Nebraska goes to Norman, Oklahoma, and has a fantastic defense and shuts down the Sooners, and all of a sudden Nebraska wins that game and is 4-0, and all of a sudden has some swagger to them, and maybe that makes a difference. But we're dreaming big right now for that. But getting that bowl game, that's you got to figure that's right there. That's the key. That's what you got to do, and then think about maybe the ceiling for this team next year.
Well, certainly you've started to touch upon it, and that is a Big Cap hit on it as well, with all this defensive talent and experience coming back with 10 starters. And, Iowa's got a capable offense. So Wisconsin doesn't have the running back room that they typically do, but we know that with Graham Nertz at the controls, they're going to be difficult to deal with. Nebraska's got to face Ohio State on the other side, of course. But this Oklahoma bunch is going to be quite the challenge. So that's going to be a stellar matchup there between that Nebraska defense and the OU offense. And as you mentioned, possibly the best quarterback in the country.
And well, you know what, too? I mean, right now, we don't have any. The media doesn't have much to talk about except for the upcoming season and expectations. And you're going to keep hearing that name, Spencer Rattler, more and more as we get closer to the season kicking off, because just the way he ended last season, and the jump that he made. So quickly that he looks like the best guy returning, the best quarterback out there returning, and going to lead everybody's Heisman list until something else happens. So, yeah, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but Oklahoma now, I know they've added some. I think they've added some transfer receivers and maybe back or something, but. They always reload there anyway. They've always got a lot of talented weapons there, and but this Nebraska defense like we said, it has the chance to be something special this year, and that's right there is going to be the test, because you start the season off with with the ball and Bielema's, and you don't know what to really expect with them, with the new coaching staff there. And Fordham, I don't think you're too worried about that one. And Buffalo's got so much turnover going on there with coaching staff and players and stuff that you expect Nebraska to beat a Buffalo team and be 3-0. So, and I don't suspect that any of those teams are going to really give much trouble to that Nebraska defense. And so I think we're going to see where they can set the standard there when they go down to Norman.
So basically, on the defensive side, we're just looking at the one corner spot.
Yeah,
to be decided.
Yeah, and you did lose Will Honus to a knee injury here this spring, and he looks like he should be get another medical red shirt as well. And he's another guy that might be back during the season too as well. So that's a little bit of a setback there, but they've got plenty of guys there that have had a lot of action this spring. And, you bring in the transfer, the Northern Iowa transfer, that he's already an experienced guy and has already proven that he can play the position here at Nebraska.
So with the 11 that are always on the field, and then considering you've got to go to nickel packages on certain downs and whatever the rotation is along the defensive front, these teams are getting to the point where they want 7 and 8 guys to rotate along the defensive front. So I'm thinking there's the 10 guys that are coming back from last season that are starters, but there's probably 15 to 16 guys at least in play that are going to be significant contributors.
Oh yeah. There's they've got a lot of depth up front. They've got a lot of linebacker depth, and they got a lot of secondary depth. And you're going to see a lot of guys like a Miles Farmer, Noah Pola-Gates, just names like that are going to start playing some very meaningful minutes and be out there in key positions. So it looks very strong, and this defense, I think that Coach Shenander doesn't get enough credit for what he's been putting together here. That kind of consistency that he's been showing here, with his defenses, that's what you want on the offensive side of the ball as well. So, yeah, I don't see any real holes this year on that defense. And you kind of look to see, like, some of these newcomers, like a Jordan Riley, who's just a monster. He's 6'8", a defensive end coming out of JUCO, and you'd like to see him make a difference, and I think he's looked pretty good all spring. So yeah, and then you look at a guy like Darian Daniels, who's been around here for a long time. That his brother came in here and played at a high level for a year, and it's his turn now, and he's lost a lot of weight and reshaped his body. I think he's down to, what do you say? He was down to a trim 330 or something like that, or 315. I can't remember what he said, but he dropped 30 pounds, he said. So, that's a big key for him to be able to stay on the field, because we all know that availability is the biggest asset that you have as a player. And if you're gassed and can't go for more than a couple of plays at a time, you're not helping your team out very much. So I think that you see guys like that now that have rededicated themselves and their bodies to, be the best they can be now.
All right. I'm not even going to attempt to decipher that handle. So whomever that is that's asking the question with a lot of N's and numbers involved.
Nintendo.
Oh, no. There you go. Yeah, I wasn't really looking at that. Thank you, Greg. Nintendo. Very clever. All right, looking for upsets this season. I will say this, Greg. I've got the schedule pulled, so I've got the jump on you here. I'm not going to say necessarily that any of these are likely upsets, but it's not going to feel real good going into hopefully a bowl game, losing 3 consecutive games to finish the season. So it's Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Iowa. That's a tough stretch at the end of the season. So it would be nice to steal one of those games to even, you don't want to have that, even if you go 6-6 and get to a bowl game. You were 6-3 and you lost the last 3 of the season. To be able to steal one against those 3 would feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that you have to kind of go in looking at this as saying, I want to play Ohio State right down to the wire. I want to give them our best, see what we can do. I mean, they've got an unproven quarterback coming back, but they are the Ohio State, so we don't expect them to drop off very much. But if you'd be stupid to think that they're going to upset Ohio State. But like I said, you shoot for trying to play them tough and not to get embarrassed. And then you got to put together 2 halves to do that. We've seen them play Ohio State tough for a half before, but it kind of drops out of the barrel there. Now I look at those other 2 games, 2 teams that that you can play with, 2 teams that have your number right now, and I think that with the experience coming back on this team and the improvements that they've made, those are 2 games that they don't want to lose. And I think they're going to do everything possible to win both of those games. And just like I said, I think you're going to see a new attitude out of this team. And you're going to see a team that now refuses to lose to an Iowa or a Wisconsin, because that's where they need to be. And that's where people want to see them to get back to this so-called normalcy that Nebraska fans have been clamoring to have.
Because really, before those final 3 games of the season, the only sure underdog role that Nebraska is going to play is on the road against Oklahoma. The other games that they're going to be a Vegas underdog is basically going to be because they're on the road.
Yeah.
They're not decidedly going to be a huge underdog against Minnesota, Michigan, or Northwestern. Yeah, on the point spread, you would think, because, and again, we're assuming these teams play to the level that we're expecting. There will be some surprises, of course, but when they go to Minnesota, let's say in mid-October, that's a toss-up game, and Minnesota, as it stands right now, would be somewhat of a favorite, again, probably because they're going to be at home. But Michigan at home in Lincoln, mid-October, that's obviously a tough game, but it's very winnable.
Yeah.
Northwestern's at home.
Should be a good game, but winnable. That's what really we've been trying to get to, that you got to win these games that are winnable games instead of losing them all to start turning the corner. Because those are games, that Nebraska is expected to win a game against an Illinois or a Purdue or a Northwestern. Those are just expected. And that's been the hard thing to try to get around, is that Nebraska keeps losing to teams like this. And, I think that question that we always had about Iowa is like, do you consider that a rivalry? I don't know if it can be a rivalry if one team wins it all the time. It doesn't seem like it. So I think, Nebraska's upset, and they want to start being known as one of these teams that, has a chance to win this division year in and year out.
Folks, check out Greg's work on Husker Online, whether that be the actual site or the video presence that he's got here with everybody else on YouTube. Just go to Husker Online. You can, bam, right after we get off with our live stream, just type it right into the search bar right here. Again, it's just a wealth of, I got lost a couple of weeks ago when I first discovered it, just a wealth of interviews and practice footage. It's good stuff for you Nebraska and college football fans. Again, every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Yes, Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. Let all your college football fans and friends and family know that we're going to be here. Greg, we always appreciate you taking the time. I hope everybody out there appreciates and understands what we got here with Greg each and every week as he shows up to give his insight and knowledge into Nebraska football. All right, I guess we'll do it again next week.
Sounds good. Hope we have some good news to talk about. You never know what happens on the recruiting front. So we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Here you go.